Right, today, good morning, everyone. Good morning. And let's give charity today. Let's not forget how important it is to give tzedakah tatzil mimovet. Charity saves from all bad things and it brings all good things. The Jewish people will be redeemed by us giving to others. So there we go, giving charity. The Rebbe said every house, every room in your house should have a charity box, and if possible, it should be part of the room. It should be affixed to the wall, if possible. It should be part of the room, part of the furniture. Okay, so yesterday we learned about Mashiach. That's what we're learning about Mashiach. And we learned what about Mashiach? That it's especially hinted at the whole idea of Mashiach and what we have to do and what's going to happen in this fast of the 10th day of Tevis. Today is a fast day. As we speak right now, we are fasting. The fast began this morning, a few hours ago. So it's only a half day fast. But in some ways, it's the most severe of all the fasts because from the rabbis, from the rabbinical fast. So there's these four fasts which were made by the rabbis, which are connected to the destruction of the temple, the first temple, the second temple. And the longest of them is Tisha B'Av, when temple, first and temple, second temples were actually destroyed. They were destroyed with like 490 years between them. The first temple was destroyed, and then the Jews were put into exile for 70 years, and then they came back, and then the second temple was destroyed 420 years later. So 490 years after the first temple was destroyed, the second was destroyed, and they were destroyed on the same date, the ninth day of. But nevertheless, all of those rabbinical fasts, if they fall out on Shabbat, if the date of the fasting is on Shabbat, you don't fast on Shabbat. You push the fast off. Push the fast off to the day after Shabbat. But but in that case, which is not the case, the 10th day of Tevis. The 10th day of Tevis, it says in the prophecy of Ezekiel that on the Etzem day, on Etzem Yom Hazeh, is the 10th day of Tevis. It says the 10th day, it was the 10th day of the 10th month. This is the 10th month, is going to be a fast day. And it says Be'etzem Yom Hazeh because it's used the word Be'etzem, so it's the same term which is used for Yom Kippur, which the rabbis understand to mean that if it falls on Shabbat, the fast of the 10th day of Tevet, if the 10th day of Tevet fast falls on Shabbat, then you would fast on Shabbat, like Yom Kippur. But since there was a man called Hillel, which is a couple of hundred years after the temple was destroyed, second temple was destroyed, he made a calendar so that the dates would all be fixed. It used to be that the dates were determined according to seeing the moon, which is a big, long, complicated process. But that complicated process does not exist today because, first of all, the Jews were going to go in exile, so there wouldn't be any big court. You had to take your witnessing the moon to the big court, and then they would decide when the month began. It was only one of 2 days of the month. They would decide when the new month was, but that doesn't exist anymore. So, as according to the calendar that Hillel said, as the 10th day of Tevis can, in fact, never fall on Shabbat. But the law is that if it did, and when those days were, and back then, before Hillel came and made this set the calendar, as if it fell on Shabbat, we would fast on Shabbat, which shows that there's something more severe about this holiday. And that what is severe about it is that it showed that it's possible for the forces of evil and destruction, to approach and lay siege to holiness and the Holy of Holies, which that's already showing things are going in a bad direction. And the reason is because of all these, of this terrible thing, was to show the Jews that they have to act more Jewish. If they're not going to act more Jewish, it's like if a person doesn't want any help, so you can't help him. Same thing with the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple is supposed to be here to help the world. If the Jews don't want it, so what can God do? So instead of God taking his wrath out on the Jewish people, so he takes it out on the Holy Temple. But however it is, we make God angry by not doing what he wants. you can't put your finger on any one particular person. I mean, if you're going to blame anybody for the troubles of the Jews, you have to blame people like me, because the religious people, because we're, so to speak, public servants. We have the responsibility to try at least to fix everybody up. So if there's anybody that's shirking the responsibility, it's people like me or me. I mean, I can't control what other religious people do. It's me. So therefore, everybody has to say to themselves, I have to fix myself up. But we have to understand that also Nebuchadnezzar, he was the one that laid siege. He did not actually do anything to the city wrong. He didn't do anything bad. Just the fact that he approached it and that it was the evil was impending. And then on the fifth day, what is it? The seventh, what is it? The 17th day of Tammuz, he broke through the walls, and then this, and then the Tisha B'Av, he burned the temple down. That was just a result of of the message that God was sending us on the 10th day of Tavis. Because everything that happens, we have to take on a message from it, and we have to improve ourselves. Okay, so this message is not so much of guilt as it is improvement. God expects a lot from us, and we have to improve. Okay, so says the Rebbe, but on the other hand, even though that this is a terrible thing, but everything that happens in the world is a message to us to be positive. Everything. And of course, it's very difficult to be positive in negative situations, but that's why we're here, is to put positivity into the negativity of the world, put optimism where there's pessimism, to put meaning where there is no meaning, to put life and health where there is the opposite. That's the job of the Jews. Terrible job. Nobody asked, nobody applied. We didn't apply for this job, but someone has to do it, says God. That's the reason he created the world. And the reason really in the beginning was Adam. He was supposed to improve the world, and Adam didn't do his job, so we have to do it. Okay. Says the Rebbe that this whole idea of transforming the bad to the good, I'm just giving a little bit of a review of what we did, of transforming the bad to the good. This is hinted at the vision that God gave Yechezkel, when he gave him this message that there was going to be the 10th day of Tavis. And he said, take a plate of iron and put it between you and the city, and that's a sign that there's going to be a laid siege to the city. So the Rebbe said, why did he take iron? He said, because iron is a sign that something bad's going to happen, because iron is bad. In Hebrew, the word for iron is barzel. Barzel, that's the name of iron. Iron was not one of the ingredients used in the tabernacle and not in the temple. It wasn't used. In fact, exactly the opposite. It was used to destroy these things. They were destroyed, especially the first and the second temple, when the Babylonians came on the first temple and the Romans came on the second temple, and it was destroyed with swords and spears and all sorts of iron weapons. Iron is not good. And it's not good to the degree that it was forbidden to bring an instrument of iron into the Holy Temple. Couldn't use an instrument of iron in the Holy. It couldn't touch on the altar or whatever. Couldn't be used to build the Holy Temple. Couldn't be used to build. Not supposed to touch this. Because why? Because iron is something used for destruction and not for this. Says the Rebbe. But interestingly enough, we see that when King David, if you look in the book of Chronicles, it says King David prepared all of the materials for the building of the first temple. God didn't allow him to build the first temple. His son had to, because David was a man of war. And even though he fought wars that were commanded for him, nevertheless, war is not a good thing. So King David was not allowed to build, but he prepared everything. And one of the things that he prepared was huge amounts of iron. And the Rebbe says, interestingly enough, it wasn't used to actually build a temple. So we can safely say that King David saved up this iron. It's found somewhere for the third temple. For the third temple. And God will use it for the third temple. However, in any case, it's for the third temple. Why? What do you have to have? Because iron essentially is a very strong metal, very strong. And the third temple will be eternal. It'll be eternal. And even we can take the word barzel, and we can, the letters of it are the first letters of the four mothers of Judaism, the mothers of the four tribes, the mothers of the 12 tribes. 12 tribes. Okay. So there's Bilha, Beit Resh Bilha, Rachel, Bar, Zel, Zilpah, and Leah. Those are the mothers of the 12 tribes. So that's transforming the bad into good. Not only that, when you transform the bad into good, it means that there won't be any more bad. There won't be any more destruction anymore. That's why the third temple will be eternal. Okay. So we said this whole business comes from this week's Torah portion, where we see that right at the end of the Torah portion, this week by Yechi, it's the end of the book of Genesis. And it says that all of the Jewish people, the whole Jewish nation was in Egypt. Joseph and his sons became the 12 tribes, and they were living in Egypt, and things were really good. And next week is going to say they were good for a while until Joseph and his sons passed away. And as soon as they did, then the exile began. Then the terrible exile began. Exile. Why did the Jews go into exile? They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't have any sins. Anything. This was already predetermined. God told Abraham in the covenant between the pieces, Brit Bein HaBetarim, that the Jews were going to be slaves in a place that wasn't theirs. God said 400 years, and God reduced the sentence until 210 years, but nevertheless, that's it. So the Jewish people will go. So that's bad. That's like Barzel of the bad side. So, but who went down was Yaakov Avinu. It says in the Torah, it says in the Chumash also, and in the you'll see right near the end of this week's Torah portion, and it says in the Talmud, that Yaakov did not die. Yaakov Avinu lo met. Yaakov did not die. And the Gemara says, what do you mean he didn't die? It says in the Torah that they buried him, that they embalmed him. And the Gemara said, it just looks like they did. But in fact, just like the Jewish people are alive, Zaro, his seed are alive, the seed of the Jewish people, so he is alive. The simple meaning is that Yaakov Avinu is alive. He's physically alive. That's a simple meaning. How can that be? That he's got a grave? Okay, so we don't understand it. We don't understand it. But that's a basic truth about the Jewish people. One of the one of the 13 foundations, principles, basics of Jewish faith is that there's going to be the raising of the dead. It's a basic, essential feature of Judaism. Without that, you're missing one of the foundations of Judaism. All the dead are going to rise. Right before that, we have to believe in Moshiach. That's the 12th of the 13 principles of faith, Maimonides. The Moshiach is going to come, and the dead are going to rise. You don't believe in this, you're missing one of the foundations of Judaism. Your Judaism is missing something essential, not just missing a side detail, like putting on tefillin, or this is like essential of Jewish faith. But on the other end, it's faith. It's not a thing that you can prove. The raising of the dead. So the raising of the dead is that somehow or other, all the Jewish people are eternal. And this was really begun by Yaakov. It's just like his seed is alive, the Jewish people are alive, so he is alive physically. But the Rebbe says that this implies also a lot more than that. The Jewish people are called his seed, and the Jewish people are like seed, that they're planted in the world in order to grow up. They're planted in places that are not bad in order to make it good. They're planted in a big field that there's nothing growing there, and all of a sudden things grow up. That's called growing up. Okay. Alpiz, according to this, movement could also be understood what can we learn Venatinas Koach and how we are empowered Shalochin, that we can take from this week's Torah portion, Vayechi, regarding to Maaseh B'Pol, to actually do. What should we actually do? Like it says, Zaro B'Chayim, that the seed of Jacob have to be alive. Alive means you do something. Tosefes v'chizuk b'machshava, we have to add and strengthen our thought, speech, and action. The tokef nitzchi, and a eternal, an unending power, assertiveness. B'hazuriya, in planting Torah and the commandments. We have to strengthen in Torah and strengthen the commandments that we do. You put on tefillin, first of all, check the tefillin to see if they're kosher. See if they're kosher. The tefillin are kosher. So many people, they inherited their tefillin from their grandfather, that he survived the camps in Siberia or something like that, and the tefillin look like two potatoes or something. There's no shape to them. Check the tefillin. Check them. It's very important. And then try to put them on once a day. You can't put them on once a day. Do it little by little. But the goal is to put on tefillin once a day, every weekday. And you can put tefillin on for just 3 minutes and say Shema Yisrael. But it's better to do more. Increase. That's what the Rebbe is saying. Increase, like a seed. It grows. Increase in Torah. What about learning Torah? Attend a class, one class a month. Then build it up to 2 classes a month. Then maybe 2 classes a week. Then maybe try to hear a class every day, or you can watch on. Increase in Torah. Especially the Rebbe stressed to do chitat. Chitat is chetat. What's chumash? Chumash is the 5 books of Moses. Every day there's a little portion of the Tehillim, Psalms, and Tanya. Every day these are a portion according to the days of the week or the days of the year. And learn a little bit every day. You can't learn a little bit. Learn a little bit less. Learn 1 sentence. Learn something. Torah, strengthen yourself in Torah. And every day try to add more. Shemevi, this brings immediately the tzmicha, the gula, this will bring the growing up, what do you say, when fruits grow? The growth, there must be a better word than that. But tzmicha of the gula, like the plant grows up, they put a little seed in the ground, all of a sudden you come back a couple of years later, there's this big apple tree or something it's completely incomparable to what the little seed that you planted. And it's beautiful. It gives shade, and it's colorful. It's a pleasure to look at, and it's fragrant. There's these beautiful white, flowers that grow on apple trees and red apples, and it's nourishing. The seed was not nourishing at all. You have all these new things that's what every Jew is. You start to do good, you'll be amazed at the results. But you have to do good. And you have to increase, says the Rebbe. But Nogei Lapula, that's what it means, the seed of Jacob. Tosefes Chizuk. This especially, you have to put special emphasis on the education of the children, the sons and the daughters, including also Vishinantam Levanecha, your own pupils. B'tokef Nitzchi, and give them an eternal power, empower them, because the Torah is something eternal. That it should be that even when the teacher is not there, or when the father is not there, the child himself, he becomes the source of wisdom. Or even when you are not actually learning the Torah, but nevertheless, the whole rest of your life, the ideas that you received from the Torah, or the power that you received from the Torah, even if you learned topics that aren't practical at all, you learned all the agricultural laws, you're not a farmer at all, right? You learned all the laws of Sanhedrin, of the laws of ownership, and the 4 different types of death penalties, and there's no death penalty today. Nevertheless, it's the Torah. It's the wisdom of God. When you learn it, it has an effect on you. Even since the Pula Sivim, when you educate a child, is made in a way of planting a seed. This brings hemshech, it makes things grow. V'zaro, it makes that you and your children, your seed and your seeds of your seed until the end of all the generations. Zara b'chaim. Shebezen nika, this is recognized, the power of the life, the power of the teacher who taught you in the beginning, like Yaakov. Yaakov taught his children, and his children are alive, and so therefore Yaakov, it's a sign that Yaakov is alive. It's a very interesting thing if you think about it. The Torah is very complicated. It's very complicated. There's a lot of very complicated laws, and especially if you learn the Talmud. The Talmud is very complicated, and there's a lot of arguments in the Talmud. And the arguments, a lot of times, it's not very clear what the outcome of all these arguments are. So there's other books which make it clear. There's the Shulchan Aruch and etc. But Judaism is a very complicated religion, very complicated. And nevertheless, we see that in Judaism for 3,300 years, since the Torah was given, even the most simple of Jews adhere to all these complicated, difficult laws. And some are even willing to risk their life for these laws. And even more, they sit and they learn Torah. They learn and they're self-sacrificing to sit and learn Torah and learn Gemara. And they're not doing it in order to go to heaven. I mean, I'm sure that there are, but they're doing it just because they're Jews. And a Jew learns Torah. And I'm sure you can find all sorts of ulterior motives. You can find all sorts of examples of, bad examples of Jews. But nevertheless, the fact is, here the Jews have been learning the Torah for 3,300 years. And because they've been learning the Torah, they've been pursued and hated and run around, and they've been chased out of all these countries. And they always took the Torah with them. They took the Sefer Torah with them, but they even took the Talmud with them. They took the Talmud with them. The Talmud is massive, right? Each person took a different tractate, whatever. Incredible, right? They were evicted from England, and they were evicted from, where is it? And after that, there's a whole order from France and from Spain, and then from Portugal, and then from Italy, and from almost every place. Jews were Al-Derech says similarly regarding, now they want to kick them out of Israel. Al-Derech says similarly, Benogea Kal Pu'ula, Ba'Pu'ula Shalo, Shenikras is called Zriya. Everything that Jew does, if it's done according to the Torah, it's planting a seed. Shekal Pu'ula, that every individual good deed you do, even one good deed, even one good word, even one good thought, it makes a powerful and eternal seed that includes in it umevil, and it brings actually more seeds and more growth, the pulas tovos, perosean, perosean, fruits, and the fruits of fruits until the end of all time. Therefore, when you stop, when someone that stops doing the Torah and the commandments according to the Torah, then even when you stop doing this and you do something else, but nevertheless, or if you take a rest in order to take a vacation, you go somewhere in order to do, nevertheless, for instance, sleep. When you go to sleep, you're not doing any good deeds, you're not learning anything, and that the soul, it says, leaves the body to a certain degree, then then you are not able to act or speak or even think about Torah and the commandments when you're asleep. But nevertheless, because you did something good in the daytime, therefore you planted a seed, and this seed still keeps the Judaism and God and the Torah alive inside of you. That what you do something in the day, a good deed, it's not just a one-time thing, that it ends when you stop doing it. But this is a living seed which is drawn for all time. Like the Rebbe once said, someone came into the Rebbe, let's just finish the paragraph. Lioto Pula Zuriya, because it's like a seed that's planted, and a seed, it grows up, whether it's in the ground, you don't see it growing, but nevertheless, when it grows up, you can see that it's eternal. And that's what it means, that just as the Jewish people are alive and they are seed of Jacob, so also Jacob is alive. We see what he accomplished by planting Judaism in the world. Kol Pula, and everything that you do, this is Nimshach Yemei Chayav. This is the whole, your whole entire life. One good deed. Once someone said to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I know I said this before, but I want to say it again. I think it said to the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, I read that you say that Moshiach can come and he's going to make all the Jews do Torah and the commandments. And he said, Lubavitcher Rebbe, I mean, you sit here and your synagogue was surrounded by your religious followers. And I mean, you're just separated from the world. You just don't know what's going on in the world. I mean, you don't have any idea, where the Jewish people are. I mean, what you're saying is just ridiculous, that all the Jewish people are going to become religious. They're all going to become religious. I mean, do you have any idea what's going on in the world? And the Rebbe said, it's a very good point that you're making. And so therefore, that's why there is Hasidut Chabad, the teachings of Chabad. And Chabad is the solution to this problem that you just talked about, the Jewish people. Why? Because we say that if a Jew does even one commandment, like we say a seed, one commandment, that he's eternally attached to God. One commandment. One commandment attaches you to Ein Sof. You're eternally, it doesn't depend on time anymore, it doesn't depend on the place, right? Technically, one commandment attaches you to God eternally, just like if you would do commandments every day of your life. All the commandments. One commandment. So therefore, technically, you do one commandment, that's enough. It attaches you to the infiniteness of God all time. But every Jew wants to do all the commandments. Every Jew wants to do all the commandments. And if he does one, so that starts to awaken something like a seed. It's like the ground wants to make things grow. So you put one seed in the ground, what's that going to help? Right? What's one seed going to help? So, but the ground wants things to grow. So from that one seed grows up, let's say, a wheat stalk, a stalk of wheat. And from that stalk of wheat, there's more seed. And that also grows up more stalks of wheat. And from that comes more stalks of wheat. In other words, you just do one good deed, as that good deed is like a seed, and it awakens something inside of you that you want to do the commandments, even though it doesn't make any sense. But that's the essence of what a Jew is. Right? We're going on the principle that the essence of a Jew is something different than everybody else. Jews want to do the commandments. It's inside of a Jew. Other people in the world, they don't want to do commandments or want to do what God wants. Maybe they want to be good people. They want to be honest. Everybody essentially want to be human, but they don't want to do the commandments. Commandments have no particular human side to them or meaning to them or beauty to them. You put two boxes on, but that's what every Jew wants to do because that's what God wants you to do. So it's like a seed. It makes things grow up. It's eternal. The Inyan said this is made by means of you reveal this thing of Yaakov, Vayechi Yaakov, that's found inside of you. Yud Akiv, that the Yud of Akiv, this stands at the little point of Judaism, the essence of the soul, because this is what's called a part of God from above, really in this world. Chelik Elokam, that's the Jewish, what's called the godly soul of a Jew. A Jew has a natural soul and a godly soul. This godly soul feels God. It's a whole personality, a different personality. Yeshbo, it wants godliness and it thinks about godliness and loves godliness and fears godliness. It's only motivated by godliness. Yeshbo, a Yud, that's the Yud, Yaakov. It has the Yud of the name of God. That's the first letter of the name of God, Yud, and then He Vav He. And it's drawn down and permeates into all the levels until Akiv. Akiv means the heels. Yaakov means Yud, the highest level of godliness, comes down to the Akiv, which is the lowest level of humanity, the heel. Therefore, Nikar, the power of the eternalness of the essence of the soul in everything you do, even in your heels, and Ein Sof. And even more, and this is the main thing, that this planting that we do is even doing one good deed. This is a deed that brings the future redemption. Like the Rambam says, future redemption, by means of doing just one commandment. This is Maimonides. This is a legal, Maimonides is a cold law book. Law book. It's not talking about theory, and it's not talking about philosophy, and it's not talking about mythology, it's talking about cold laws. It says that by means of doing one commandment, one good deed, Maisechad, one good deed, one good word, Machshava Achad, one good thought, you can incline yourself and the whole world to the side of merit, and you cause the whole world salvation and, how do you say, and benefit the whole world. She'az, then each and every Jew will see that every Jew will have eternal life actually eternal life. Everyone will live in their bodies eternally. Hechil, beginning with the Jewish people in this generation, souls in bodies for long life and for good years, not just 100 and like Yaakov lived 147 years, like the years of Yaakov. Every Jew will live not just 120 years, which is, it says that after Noah, it says people won't live more than 20, but we see that Yaakov was well after Noah and he lived 147. That's pretty good. 147 years, and they were all good years. He said, the Rebbe said, no, that's not enough. People will live not just 147 years, and not just like Yaakov did, and not 180 years like Yitzchak lived, but it'll be eternal life in this world. How can there be eternal life? So the answer is that there will be now. There will be now. There will be nothing to stop. There won't be any barzel. There won't be any iron. There won't be any forces of destruction to destroy. And every moment will be here. What's the Rebbe trying to say? Death is an unnecessary thing. It's an additional thing to the world. The world can do without death. If there's no more death, there also won't be any more boredom. You don't have to worry. Al derech zeh, and by means of this, every moment will be interesting. It'll be a miracle. How it's going to be exactly, I don't know, but it's going to be. Al derech zeh, similarly, I mean, in a way, it's right now also, because to appreciate the moment that you're living in means you're not caught in the past and you're not so worried about the future or whatever it is. You're in the present, but you're in the present with an awareness of the past and the future. But the big miracle is right now that we're alive and that we're conscious. It's not to say that you have to be right now. In other words, forget about your family, forget about your obligations, forget about where you're from, go in the desert and sit on a mountain or something, right? And forget about it. Just be now. Just live now. That's not really being now. That's really not being now. And the fact that that's like death. Being now means that you're alive. It's like a dynamic. Al derech zeh, I heard another word for it. What is another word for it? What is it called? Not volatile. Somebody said a good word. Okay, anyway. Al derech zeh, similarly regarding to the Jewish people and all the generations before, there will be all of the Jews that died. It says that they will awaken and sing those people who now lay in the dirt, in the ground. All the Jewish people for all the generations, and after that until the end of all time. May it be God's will that making a good decision, that you are going to add, like a seed, one more good deed, one more good words, more good thoughts. It's amazing if you make a decision, I'm only going to say good things, you'll be amazed at how many not good things that you say. How many not good things you say? How many times you have to stop yourself in the course of the day? I'm not going to say that. I got it. I'm not going to say that. You want to say something bad about somebody, everybody's talking something about, some person, you got something to say, oh, that's not all. All of a sudden, and to say good things about people, right? To force yourself to say something good. Sometimes that's like splitting Yam Suf. You have to split the Red Sea. I'm about to say something good about people. I'm going to say good. That's what the Rebbe says. Add one good deed. Give a little more charity. Give a couple times charity. Add one good word. One good thought. Then you know what? The next day, maybe add two. Maybe add three. It should be constantly growing all the time, as much as possible. And of course, there's going to be setbacks. And of course, there's going to be all sorts of disappointments. And suddenly you start making these decisions. Suddenly you realize how do you say, not positive you've been up to now, right? And sometimes it's very shocking to look at your own personality, right? But nevertheless, that's not the point. There's difficulties, but the point is to add on something good. Think good, speak good, do good, even a little bit. It doesn't have to be massive things. I'm going to build a big building, and if I don't change the whole world, I'm not going to do anything. Even the smallest thought, we have no idea how much good one good thought can do. We have no idea. The Maimonides says that we should look at the world like it's on a very, very delicate balance between good and bad. And that one more good deed can tilt the whole world over to the side of good. That's what the Rambam says. One more good deed, one good thought. So who's supposed to do it? Me, you, each and every person on their own. You can't force someone else to do it. You can ask other people to do commandments and do good things, but that's your job. The results are up to God. If other people listen to you, that's not your business. That's God's business. But our job is to do good. Says the Rebbe promises that every good deed, thoughts, word is a seed. Even one thought in a way of planting it. And even before you do it, this will be a seed that will bring growing and to the point of growth. Actually, like we pray for every day, it's Tzemach David, the plant of King David. But take it immediately, really immediately, says the Rebbe, right now on this Shabbat that we're speaking about, this Shabbat, which is Chazak, the end of we're reading the end of the book. We're finishing the book of Genesis. So everybody says, Chazak, Chazak, Benit Chazek. That we're finishing the first book of the Torah, the first of the 5 books, that includes in it all of the 5 books of the Torah and the 24 books also of the prophets and of the writings, ad siyum, until the end of the book of Chronicles. It says Vayal, that all the Jewish people went up to Israel. It says Va'aliyah min hagolus, that they left the exile of Babylon and they began the second temple. That's where the book of Chronicles ends. It says, but it's also talking about us going out of this terrible exile of Rome that we're in now, Galut Romi, going out of that, and all the Jewish people come to the land of Israel, but on until that before we read, the Rebbe is speaking now before the Mincha prayer of Shabbat. So before the prayer of Mincha, when we start the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus says these are the names of the Jewish people that went into Egypt. Before we read that, it'll already be Reuven and Shimon. It says Reuven and Shimon, they went down into Egypt, the 12 tribes, and those same 12 tribes will come out. All of the 12 tribes, Ha'avot ve'imot, and also they'll all come out. All the Jews which had passed away, Jews, including the first Jews, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rachel, Rivka, Leah, Bilhah, Zilpah, Moshe, Aaron with them. And also the previous Rebbe with them, Yosef, Yitzchak, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. All of them never died. Kamo Yaakov Avinu, just like Yaakov Avinu. So a picture over here of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Beautiful man, beautiful picture. Here, Rebbe Yosef. Here we go. Oh, see, picture. Oh, very nice. Beautiful. Who needs this? 1 second. There he goes. Here's other pictures, right? More pictures. Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Wonderful man, beautiful man. Not this. This is a nice person, but not here. It's a Rebbe Rayatz. Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. There we go. There's a lot of other Chabad Hasidim also, but here's the one of the classic pictures of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Oh, this is the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. Here's okay. Yes. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. Yosef, and he'll, the previous Rebbe, he will also come out from raise the dead. All the Jewish people will raise from the dead. And it says that what's Yosef Yitzchak? It says that he is the Nasi. Nasi means like the leader of the generation. That's the first letters of Nitzutz Shel Yaakov Avinu. Nasi, the leader of the generation. Is the king also. Nasi is also the king of the generation, referring to the Moshiach. He says he was the spark of Yaakov Avinu. The Al Yadei is kashrus, by means of this and surrendering ourselves, being harmonious with the leader of the generation. This will draw down to each and every people, each and every Jew in that generation. Simply speaking, what are we seeking? Simply speaking, Pashtus. What happened? 1 minute. Pashtus, simply, that immediately now, that God will Yosef, that he will continue, he will gather together, and Asaf, all of the Jewish people, he will continue, and he will gather together all of the scattered Jews. He'll gather them all together from the 4 corners of the world, our youth, our elders, our sons, our daughters. It says that's how the Jews, it says they left Egypt. after the plague of darkness, who the plague of the firstborn, who atzmo, that the Rebbe, the previous Rebbe himself, and will lead us out of the exile, and God Himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God Himself will grab everybody's hand, ish mukomo, like it says, v'atem teluktu echad achad b'nei Yisrael, like it says, you will be gathered together. Each and every one of the Jewish people will all be gathered together. 137. He says, this is what in Isaiah, sentence in Isaiah. You will be gathered together, all the Jewish people. Oh, and He will, God will return all of them, and He will return with them. It says, God hichtiv gula, that when the Jewish people are in exile, God put Himself into exile. Together with, but when the time comes, and it should come any second now, all of the Jewish people, together with all of the synagogues and all of the places of learning and all the places of giving charity, and with all of the books and all of the handwritten books that which are in outside of Israel. There's a lot of books of Chabad and handwritten precious things which are kept by Putin in Russia. We have access to them, but they won't let them take them out. You can't take them out. Anyway, all these books, they say that the Moroccan Jews, I imagine this was that there was thousands and thousands of holy tzaddikim in Morocco, and they were tremendous geniuses. And when they left, they had to leave, so they buried them. So there's all these handwritten, beautiful, amazing Torah ideas that are buried by these big tzaddikim. All of them will come to the land of Israel, together with the synagogues and all the places of learning, and especially the synagogue and the place of learning of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, 770, which is called Beit Rabbeinu Shababavel. We learned that once. That it says in the Talmud that there's going to be a thing called the Beit Rabbeinu Shababavel. It's in the Gemara in Megillah, that there is, and while the temple is not here, so that there's what's called a temple outside of Israel, the temple in Babylon, and that place is the main place where Torah is spread out through the world. That's what it says in the Gemara. And that when Mashiach comes, it's going to fly, that the holy temple will come from heaven, and it'll go to that place first. The Rebbe said that's 770, and then that'll fly through the air. And this is really amazing stuff. Fly through the air with all of the synagogues in the world. I'm sure that this will impress the United Nations sufficiently that they'll stop condemning Israel. You see all the synagogues flying through the air. In any case, maybe not. Maybe it won't impress them. It could be. In any case, says the Rebbe, the table is already set, and the meal of Leviathan and the Shor Habor and the preserved wine from the beginning of time, all these spiritual levels will actually be physical. And finally, after the meal is all ready, and all the Jewish people are all sitting around the table, millions and millions, as King David, Malcham Mashiach, will say, I will make the blessing, and it is good for me to bless. This will begin because Mashiach is going to come from David. Look at the book of Psalms. You'll see all the problems King David had, and nevertheless he was steadfast in his the joy to serve God. It'll begin, says the Rebbe, let's us begin in the meal of Motzi Shabbat, which will continue the meal of wine and food, and for bringing of the day of Shabbat, which is something like Shabbat is the day which is all Shabbat. In the future redemption is called the day that is totally Shabbat, because there won't be any problems. There won't be any bad work to do. Suda David, the meal of after Shabbat is called the meal of David Malka Mashiach, of King David, the Messiah. Ubefrat, and especially on the first day, Yom of Chamesh Esrei B'chodesh Kaimas Yor, the 15th day of Tevet, when the moon is full, that certainly there will be some sort of a big meal, a festivities on that day, and even more that will be together, the festivities will be together with King David, Malka Mashiach, King Messiah at our head. And since that, even before that, now it's a very important thing here. One of the main points of Mashiach is he's going to gather the Jews together. And that's why we say all these other people that claim that they are the Mashiach and that this guy's the Mashiach and he already came. We see that they're exactly the opposite. They cause the Jews to get scattered all over. The Rambam says they cause the Jews to be scattered all over the world. They cause the Jews to lose their identity and to intermarry and to get all confused and you say thrown into into a lack of identity, right? So Mashiach is going to do exactly the opposite. He's going to bring back Jewish identity. He's going to bring all the Jews to connect to God through the Torah, and eventually he's going to build a temple and bring all the Jews back to Israel. And what is a Jew? A Jew is only what the Torah determines. What the Torah then, when the Torah determines, the rabbis are the ones that interpret the Torah. Without that, then there's no identity of a Jew. How can Mashiach gather the Jews if nobody even knows what a Jew is, right? So that's Mashiach is going to bring all the Jews back to Torah, and Torah is what defines the Jewish people, and the Jewish people will all wake up from all the seeds that have been planted in the previous generations. And then since that already going in Anani Shemaya says all of the Jews will come, it says on clouds of heaven to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, the holy city, to the holy mountain, to the holy temple, and to the Holy of Holies. That's where all the Jews belong, and that's where all the Jews will be because of the planting of the good deeds and words and thoughts of Jews through the whole generation. But we have to, all the generations, but we have to continue doing it. It says the Rebbe that actually from the ground will pop, physical ground, will pop up all of the physical bodies of all the Jews. How is it going to work exactly? Because there's reincarnation, and sometimes the same soul can have been put into like 10 different bodies. So what's going to, the Rebbe has a letter where he deals with this problem. Okay, now let us have a short, do the Yom Yom. Okay, here we go. First of all, stop this.